Survivor specialist Alexa and Andy are back. I'm not with McKenna. I am not with Phil. I am with Andy, who definitely knows way more about The Amazing Race than any of the three people I just mentioned. So welcome back, Andy. It's great to have you.
Great to be here. We love the upgrade.
Also, I mean, you upgraded yourself. You actually took notes this time around, I heard.
I did. I actually know what happened in this episode and can discuss like things people said.
I mean, you did a really good job when you recapped the Frosty Boot episode of Survivor China without any notes. But then again, that was a pretty straightforward episode. So, this one had a little more going on.
Yeah, we're still going to see if I actually refer to them because they're in another tab. And I like staring at my face a little bit too much, but they are there. I did actively think about this episode while watching it.
So. Well, I'm glad you actually put that to words because I've been podcasting for 5 years and I stare at myself the whole time. It's like I don't look at Phil. I write my notes because I'm a grandmother, but I also stare at myself too. So right there with you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this episode was supposed to be Gary and D'Angelo's swan song, but they are the cockroach that will not die. You and I both live in New York. We've both witnessed, I'm sure, hundreds of cockroaches.
Oh, yeah.
They are the ones that will not die, no matter how much hairspray, no matter how much, how many pots and pans you're whacking them with. And they hung on by a thread. I mean, I really thought that the tree being knocked down was going to do something, when really it turned out to probably just become some kind of an editing trick.
Yeah, it was mean. It was a cruel joke that the producers played on us. I didn't know how involved monks were in construction.
I don't think they typically are. As a non-expert in Cambodian culture, I don't think monks in construction have much in common. But again, I could be very wrong.
They were directing the bulldozer tonight.
They sure were. And it was so funny because Gary was like, oh, darn the monks. And I was like, what? Why? Why are we talking about monks? And then you see the huge construction equipment. So I don't know. I thought that was very weird.
There was a lot of monk action tonight too. We have them as construction workers, as clear, like strict referees of protocol.
And, they wear hats and, vests. It's all very clear that they are working in a potentially dangerous zone. But then
that's why they wear orange.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, that's why. To make clear to
how did we not know this?
Yeah, exactly. I don't pay enough attention.
Yeah.
So anyway, I again thought it was going to be kind of close, but I've been tricked by The Amazing Race a few times. So the whole beginning of this, we're talking about where the Mind Five make it to the final five. Yay. Everyone's so excited. Breaking it up immediately. So we have Will and James, Will and James, Hung and Chi, and the Beards, because I still don't know which one's Riley and which one's Madison, but I feel like Riley always ends up doing the roadblocks.
Yes.
They are the group of three, and they seem to not have an opinion on Ishwar and Aparna. They actively want Gary and D'Angelo gone. They're talking about this double U-turn, and doesn't end up working out for them.
No, and usually when you see something foreshadowed like that on The Amazing Race, that's exactly how it will happen.
Right.
So I kind of did enjoy like a little bit of things going slightly differently than we've predicted all season.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's definitely been this through line of Ishwar and Aparna being this, like, they were the buffoon team in episode 1, and they kind of never actually got their footing. So as cool as they are, and as much as I enjoyed watching them, like, we knew they were going soon.
They were never going to win. And someone, when Phil and I were recapping, I think it might have been Phil, he was just like, they're always going to get 5th place. So they're always just going to be fine. And here they are on like getting 5th place in the entire race. But yeah, I'm with you. Like, I think I did expect a little more from them, but I think their chemistry was just not up to snuff against, the top 3. I think D'Angelo and Gary have like a really fascinating dynamic, and somehow it like continues to work for them. But with Ishwar and Aparna, I think, as soon as they got U-turned, I knew nobody else was going to get U-turned, so they were kind of screwed after that.
When we get to that part of the episode, we can talk about how obviously dumb of a decision it was for Gary and D'Angelo to do that. But they obviously didn't know what the dynamic was with the other 3 teams.
They had no idea. Like last week was hilarious.
Super wasted opportunity.
Right, where the host, his name's Phil, but I always feel weird mentioning a Phil who's not our Phil. Phil's like, oh, well, he's trying to be all Jeff. He's like, what do you think about this alliance you're in? And really like trying to stir up the drama. And they're just like, I don't know, we're in an alliance. It's fine. And they still, like, to this day, I think aren't aware that there is a trio without them.
Yeah. Well, every team seems to keep finding out about these alliances as they get eliminated.
Yeah, I know. Who was it? I think Kaylin and Haley were like, we had absolutely no idea that there was an alliance, so it hasn't been super obvious. But you said that in Amazing Race during these previews, they always happen. Is that because Survivor? It's like I'd say they happen, like they don't happen more than they do, but Amazing Race, it's pretty clear.
Yeah, like I mean, like foreshadowing within the episode. So like if they say at the beginning, like Riley and Madison had 2 separate confessionals where they were like, "There's going to be a double U-turn. We want to U-turn Gary and D'Angelo." And then you have Will and James discussing during the detour that they were going to try to burn the board, which is a phrase I have never heard before, even though that strategy has been used.
I didn't know what that meant either. Like that's something I've never heard someone say that.
Yeah. So the strategy is one team U-turns the second team, and then the second team arrives to the board and they U-turn the team that's already been there, so that there can't be a second team U-turned.
Oh.
So they burn the board, as in like, yeah, we're not playing the double U-turn game. It's a one team thing, and it works when you have like a target.
Yeah.
But D'Angelo and Gary would have been way better served to have the Beard Bros U-turn a second team,
right?
Because then it wouldn't be as close.
Right. So okay, so that's funny. And they were. I mean, let's get to that because we're gonna get to that in like 15 minutes. So pretty much for the first like 10 minutes, they're just riding tuk-tuks around, which seems great. There's no traffic. But they get on the boat and the Beard Bros are killing it. They're actually studying up on their clue, as we have chastised people throughout the season for not studying up on their clues. And their boat breaks down. And I don't know how long they're there, but they go from first place to I think 4th place or 3rd place.
I think it was 3rd. They were still ahead of the other 2 teams. I'm guessing it was like the boat stalled, the guy revved the engine, and then they were in business again. It was probably just enough time for the other boats to pass.
Yeah. And there again, I've been saying that I think the Beard Bros are going to win because they have absolutely like no communication issues and they don't get mad at each other when things aren't going well. I would be losing my mind if that had happened. I'd be screaming at anybody who would listen. And Hung and Chi, I don't think they're yellers, but they've shown times of disagreement with each other. And Will and James, I feel like, could get kind of into it with each other. Riley and Madison were just like, man, this really sucks. Like, how can we fix this? And I think that like to me shows why they can definitely win this.
Yeah. I mean, they're literally the same person. You could argue with yourself if you want to, but that gets you nowhere.
Right.
And in the meantime, the way that they act, how can we fix this? Instantly, it is fixed.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
This is the answer.
Will it into existence and it'll actually happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so we get to our first detour, and instead of this versus that, we have Fish versus Farm. Immediately in your first of all, who would you play Amazing Race with? Because we're gonna do a lot of like role playing here.
Oh, of course. So I do have a buddy who we've talked about trying out for Amazing Race like 75 times, and we've never actually done it. Between the two of us,
made a video?
So no, between the two of us, we've applied for Survivor about 16 times, like 11 of which were me. But the one time we were together to make a video for Amazing Race, we were like, we thought about it for like half a second, and we said something, but like it was not good. And our relationship is weird. Like it's not one that translates to TV because we were like coworkers and then we're friends and we're 2 short non-athletes. So
that's the demographic they're looking for.
Always. Oh yeah, we need more young white men on these shows.
Yeah, there aren't enough of them. By
Just
God.
not enough. So I would love to do the race with him because we've actually talked through who would do tasks and stuff. But
yeah, and I have to imagine like because I have not filmed 11 Survivor videos, but I've filmed some Survivor videos. Doing it on your own, like, it's not like I know my own self. Like, I know what I'm awkward. I know how to play the game. As soon as you add another person, you're kind of like playing it for the camera. And I feel like if you're not well practiced in that, it's going to be really hard.
Oh, absolutely.
But if Amazing Race comes back, which hopefully after the season it will, hopefully this gave them the boost they needed. Hopefully you guys can actually give it an application.
Yeah, and I'm open. I will run the race with literally anybody. So I will take applications at your earliest convenience, audience.
Hello at CBS.
Anybody who makes my story good, I will race with you.
So you and insert partner here, Fish or Farm?
So partner is like very into environmental science. So I think he's into plants.
I feel like that translates. Yeah.
And he would do Farm. As I'm reading that, I'm never a fan of the tasks where you have to like copy something verbatim because I have no fine motor skills. And like whenever it's those like little teeny details,
yeah,
I could notice them, but that doesn't mean I can execute them. if they say pull in a net, I didn't realize that it was half a mile of netting.
Yeah, that was insane.
Probably
I
try
wrote
to
down
do that.
3,280 feet. That is
over half a mile of net.
That's crazy. I'm with you because I probably would have gone fish. This farm one didn't seem like it had the, when they were in Kazakhstan, like that sheep's head, that like there wasn't like a twist on this one, I guess because it was a detour. But that fish I felt like was a total bait and switch because I thought they were just gonna, like throw it, but pulling that thing at the exact same pace sounds very difficult.
Yeah, but once you get into a rhythm, I could see it working out. I do think, though, if I were like Hung and Chi, where I said fish and my boat driver took me to the wrong one,
yeah,
like the farm didn't seem that hard.
It didn't seem bad. I was expecting it to be worse.
Yeah, I mean, usually in the legs where there's a U-turn, you're gonna have two fairly simple detours, just because there's going to be a team that has to do both of them. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to have something that's going to take you like 2 hours to do one task.
Yeah, and again, this could have been an editing trick, but Ishwar and Aparna like totally nailed the farm. And again, I know they had to cut it up, but it didn't seem like that was difficult for them at all. So we have the Beards, the NFL players, and Ishwar and Aparna do the fishnet, and the garden was Hung and Chi and the boyfriends. So, and this was another one where what I love, you
talking about Will's comment?
Will's comment about how in middle school he killed his garden.
Yep.
I was going to say every challenge, someone's like, oh, well, when I played piano in 8th grade, like this is how I can apply it to this role. I was waiting for him to be like, oh yeah, I have this like lush garden where I live. And he's like, I murdered it.
Yeah.
So
in the meantime, Hung's parents have a garden that has literally the exact same plants.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
She knew exactly what to do. And they had a really good system too, where I think Hung was doing the planting and Chi was doing the mixing. Mm-hmm. So I know I mentioned that like they don't always have great chemistry earlier. They are like about as perfect as you can get. I think that's your final two. I think your final two are Hung and Chi and the Beards.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know where Will and James are going to fit into all of it. I think that final leg, if it's the three of them, could be very intense.
Mm-hmm.
Or, hot take, next week we might lose a favorite.
Ooh, why do you say that? I didn't watch the preview. I don't know if I did not watch the preview.
I watched the preview, but I coughed when he said what country they were going to, so I didn't sure where they're going.
Come on, Andy.
So Chad, help us out with that. But no, I'm not even thinking about what the tasks are. I'm just thinking about how the race tends to go. You usually have like...
Yeah, how does the Final Four... I've never made it to a Final Four. How does Final Four go?
It varies. Sometimes, like last season when it was the Reality Stars, it went exactly as we would have expected, where the three strong teams from The Amazing Race all did really well. But other times, you tend to have a team who you think is like a front runner. This happened the season that Phil always talks about with that team, Andy and Tommy.
Okay.
They were like an obvious front runner to win the race, and at the Final Four, you have a bad leg, you're gone. That's happened several times throughout the show's history. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's so much an editing trick, the fact that, they're going to the Philippines.
Oh, wow. We know the Philippines.
We know the Philippines.
We've done that.
Yeah. About as well as we know Cambodia anyway. There were some familiar words.
Yeah, seriously.
So if I were a betting man, like, I would not place a bet on this because the three teams that have been like forecast as a 3-team alliance have been very strong. But also Gary and D'Angelo keep kind of presenting themselves as that thorn in the side. Mm-hmm. That I could totally see making it to the final leg and then being the team that implodes there so that the two teams that remain are the ones who battle out for the win.
So we lose like Hung and Chi next week because of whatever reason. And then our final three is like two top. Because I would say like, I mean, Gary and D'Angelo, for as much as like people have been trashing them, they, myself included, they're in the Final Four and they do well. Hello, Kat. Hi, Kat. But oh yeah, named after Survivor. Love it. So I mean, I think the difference is they just don't seem like they've watched The Amazing Race before, while the other three couples like very clearly are Amazing Race fans.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
Hung was very proud about knowing what the Travelocity roaming gnome was.
Oh my God. I'm glad you brought that up. The product placement, is it always this wild near the end?
It's not always near the end, but every season since season 7. So this is what, season 32?
Yeah.
Every season since season 7, there's been one leg where you have to run the entire leg while carrying a Travelocity roaming gnome.
Got it.
The first time they did it, it was really cool because like you had to pick your gnome, and each gnome, one of them like related to the prize for the leg. And then ever since, it's just been carry your gnome with you. Tonight was nice because like the gnome actually like had supplies that they used, and it played a role.
Purposes.
Yeah, like it mattered. So it felt nicer. It felt more authentic. Like that gnome totally lives in Cambodia and is prepped for whatever tasks face them.
Yes, such as like opening a box that has a slide puzzle on it. But it was just really funny because you're rushing to the end in the tuk-tuk and they're like cuddling with the gnome. It's like such a funny dichotomy.
I just love that the gnomes had life jackets for the boat.
Yeah, you know, you got to keep them safe, you know.
The players didn't, the teams didn't, but the gnomes did. the
players can deal, but the gnomes, you know, you can't have the product placement drowning. That sounds like a complete disaster. Okay, so we get to the W turn. And first of all, Phil says this is a game changer, and I still get triggered anytime anyone says something's a game changer. So the Beards and Gary and D'Angelo get to the U-turn pretty much at the exact same time. So the Beards can't U-turn Gary and D'Angelo. I still think they could have, with my lack of knowledge about Amazing Race, because at this point, I don't really know what repercussions there are. I don't know if there's no more yields.
There's no more yields. There's no more U-turns. There's no help on any leg.
Oh, so there's no more U-turns either.
No, yeah, we were told that this is the last double U-turn. The yields ended last week. There's a leg and then the finish.
And also, I imagine when you're in the Final Four, even if everybody is all best friends, you're going to stop giving advice to people. So other than just like being very awkward by U-turning someone right next to you, I don't know why they didn't just do it.
Yeah, that kind of struck me as a little weird. They didn't end up having the opportunity, so it didn't matter.
Right.
But when I just had a really good thought and I totally lost it. Oh, early in the race, and the reason why we didn't see these powers being used as aggressively is because if you're going to U-turn or yield a team early on, you best make sure that team goes home.
Right.
We saw when Leo and Alana didn't go home, how much of a pain that became for Will and James, and how constantly that storyline kept coming up for them, and it very possibly could have turned out differently.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, it's the end. I would even say, like, I would be right there next to the team, be like, respect, guys, but we got here first. We need more of a lead. Go do the other tasks. We'll see you in a little bit.
Yeah,
and
you're right. It doesn't have to be antagonistic.
No, especially now knowing that Gary and D'Angelo were going to U-turn Iswar and Aparna. Like, I get that, like, the reasoning behind the Beards not wanting to U-turn them was they were worried that they would U-turn either the boyfriends or Hung and Chi.
Mm-hmm.
But that wasn't the mindset. The mindset that the NFL people had was, we're going to U-turn the slowest team so that if we make a mistake later, we can still beat them. So it's a little bit of a different kind of thought process, but as people who study Survivor and as people who know what the social game aspect of all of this is, after like 7 legs of racing, you should be able to read that. So I would hope that if the Beards had actually had the opportunity to U-turn them, that they would have pulled the trigger.
Yeah, I think so too. Because I think you're right there. Like the Will and James and Leo and Alana situation, it became like a thing. And again, I don't really know what the history is, but I think that was Leo and Alana feeling really angry, and I don't think Will and James meant it antagonistically, but you're always going to take it that way. I can't imagine D'Angelo and Gary being like that, because even in like when things aren't going well, they, for what it's worth, like can keep a level head. Like D'Angelo was getting heckled, and I'm sure he's gotten heckled way worse than what Aparna did to him, seeing that he had spent the majority of his life on an NFL field. But he was like joking, muttering under his breath. Like he didn't really let it get under his skin. And I don't know if that ends up working out for him or not, because it takes him like 16 attempts to get this right, only after studying, and Gary's like seething in the corner, but they end up making it through.
Yeah. And I will say the best thing about this episode was Aparna's reaction. And basically everything Aparna did when they showed up at the roadblock that made this episode.
I loved it. And I was watching my friend, and I wasn't sure, because normally during these roadblocks, you have one person off, and it seems like they can't even, you can be like, oh yeah, good job, Andy, but you can't do much more than that. So Aparna just like comes rolling on in, just like spewing fire. I loved it. I didn't know you were allowed to do that.
Yeah, I love the "Hey guys, fuck you." That was the best.
So funny. Oh yeah, D'Angelo was like, man, she was spicy today. She was mad. I don't blame her.
I don't blame her at all.
I don't blame her.
I love how D'Angelo was in the confessional after being like, why is she even like that? I don't get it. Why is she acting like that? It's a game.
Because you U-turned her.
You literally just told them, we're going to do everything we can to stop you from winning $1 million.
Yeah. And like, guess what?
She's allowed to be mad.
Gary and D'Angelo are already millionaires.
Mm-hmm.
To put really,
D'Angelo is for sure. I don't know.
I don't know who Gary is. D'Angelo has. I'm sure D'Angelo has a lot of money, so he is fine. Ishwar and Aparna both went to Cal, so maybe have crazy student loans.
I mean, they are software engineers. Also,
no one told me that
profession.
I had no idea they were software engineers.
I'm happy that I could bring you that tidbit of info.
Yes, thank God. Also, Ben was a Marine, so there's a lot of things we didn't already know.
Yes. And Sierra voted out her mom.
Yes, exactly. So you read the clue. It says, "Who can fit the mold?" Do you do it, or does your partner do it?
Oh, my partner, hands down. I'm like Will. I don't fit in any mold. I also don't love arts and crafts.
I thought that was hilarious. You are a teacher, though.
But I'm a math teacher.
Yeah,
I'm very good at like rigid numbers. I'm a creative guy, but like I'm a speaker. I am a performer. I can't sit and like intricately place tiles in a certain spot.
That looked very, very painstaking. Yeah, what you teach is about as far away from arts and crafts as you can possibly get.
I think we have to we graph and shit, but like that's about it. I get a ruler. Like, there were no rulers.
Well, you actually know, because you're just pouring stuff into the molds. You don't actually have to like measure anything out. Yeah. And I wouldn't have like thought this one seemed like one of the harder challenges. Like hearing the word "fit the mold," I don't know. I would not have known what to expect there. But this is one where there's pretty much no instructions, and there's one man just like mass producing these tiles. They watch him once and then just go to town and my mic just fell. Just go to town and don't consider looking again. And Gary, who in previous episodes we've given a lot of flack for, especially for his art collection, Gary was right this whole time. And if the situations were reversed, they probably could have gotten first place.
Yeah. And like, I think with this one, they knew where they were, right? They were told that they were at like an artisan.
Yes. And also they were in like a, I don't know.
It was going to be an indoor task. Like you have this kind of vague idea that you're not going to be shouldering a heavy load of weight. You're not going to be sprinting,
build something, navigating. Create something.
Yeah. So I don't know why, unless there was, I have to check the numbers on who did how many roadblocks. I'm kind of surprised Gary didn't do this one. Based on what we know about him being an artist and being observant.
Maybe it was, Phil had mentioned last week that you have to generally split the roadblocks evenly. And I feel like Gary has done more of them. I mean, like the first ones that come to mind, Gary did the drums in episode 1. Gary did the portraits. He did the one that was similar to the portraits with the AI thing. Uh-huh. So I feel like D'Angelo did the walking down the side of the wall. I feel like Gary's done more, so maybe he had to sit out.
That's very possible, especially knowing that there's 2 legs left. You want to each be able to do one roadblock still.
Gotcha. And is it like, does production tell them like, hey, Gary, you've done too much, or is it kind of a like honor system thing?
No, it's not an honor system thing. Sometimes they will literally put in the clue, like D'Angelo must do this roadblock.
Okay.
Because it happened, this was again several years ago. It was like season 5. The team that won, it was a husband-wife pair. The husband did, I think, 10 roadblocks and the wife did 1.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So the next season they were like, we're going to change this.
Yeah.
And it used to be, it used to be like you can only do 6 over the course of the whole race, but then you still had like the early eliminated teams were doing a ton of roadblocks. So then they started to kind of behind the scenes manipulate how many you can do like by certain marks within the race. And I'm also totally talking out my ass right now. I don't know if there's an official rule about that. But I do know that every so often they throw in the clue, so-and-so must do this roadblock.
I mean, you could tell me whatever and I would believe you, but that sounds like fair. That sounds about right. Okay, so D'Angelo, Riley, Chi, Will, and Ishwar are the ones who do this. And this is a double one where you have to make the tile, which is obviously the hardest part, and then do a slide puzzle, which triggers all of our Survivor brains. I know if I ever go on Survivor to do slide puzzles, I feel like that's not something you think about when you're going on Amazing Race. I feel like Amazing Race, you think about who can jump from heights, who can
jump from heights, drive stick. Equals is for both, but like especially
Yeah.
race.
But slide puzzles, like if you don't do them, you won't know what to do. But everyone seemed to handle this pretty well. What'd you think about that one?
Yeah. Again, Survivor brain. Obviously, I've practiced slide puzzles. Not too much. I'm not a challenge threat. Anybody who I play with in the future, but this was a 3x3, which is a fairly simple slide puzzle to do. Like you don't have to really have a technique for that. And we don't know how long they spent on them. I was the most confused by the fact that it really didn't change any placements. So like nobody passed anyone on the puzzle.
Right.
But that could just mean that they were all equally good or equally bad at it, depending on where they were. Like knowing what I know about Will and James, I'm sure that Will has practiced slide puzzles before.
Probably. And we get the we got that footage a few weeks ago of them practicing like balancing the wine bottles or like I forget what they were doing, balancing from their home videos. So they're like, they came to play. They came prepared.
Oh, yeah. And Will has been very involved in a variety of like competitive reality TV communities. Even more so than James has, as far as I know. Even though like James is being billed as the super fan, but Will's got experience.
Yeah, they really like at the beginning, it was like, oh yeah, it's like, oh, you brought on Will because you couldn't get on with anybody else. But that like was dissipated pretty quickly. And I feel like Will is as much, if not slightly more of a character than James is at this point.
Yeah.
So you're right. So the slide puzzle doesn't change anything. Will and James, in terms of final placement, Will and James scoot up. D'Angelo and Gary obviously scoot down. There's really not much more to this. So the pits, they have the pit stop at this temple, which looks super awesome. And the Beards get in first place. Will and James get in second place. Hung and Chi in third. And then we think it's really tight, but it's probably actually not. NFL players get fourth place, and Ishwar and Aparna get fifth place. What do you think about all this?
I mean, they really did that push with us for them first not being able to find their tuk-tuk, and then the tree.
Yeah, I'm not buying it. Maybe it's because I'm a newbie, but I don't know.
I mean, I was buying this one more than I've bought them in the past.
Yeah.
What confused me the most, though, was at the roadblock, Ishwar was the one who figured out how to grease the mold before D'Angelo.
Right.
I don't know how he finished the roadblock so much later. Like,
right.
He started the waxing first. He was the first one who knew you had to grease the pan. And Gary even made the comment to Aparna, like, your brother's doing more than Gary. So that was real time. I don't quite understand how he didn't finish first.
There must have been something else that he wasn't doing correctly. Because I think, like, it was, she was saying, like, it's a multi-step process. So maybe there was another issue he was having. Because, like we said, the slide puzzles didn't seem to really move the needle at all. Yeah. And maybe this is something that just takes 10 tries. And he just wasn't used to the process. Because I noticed that, too. Like, he walked in and Gary was like, ah, crap, we're going to lose because of this.
Yeah. I mean, Gary was not having it, like, the entire time of that roadblock.
Yeah, like, Ishwar and Aparna waltz in and he's snoozing on the ground. Not having it.
Yeah, Chi was struggling and Hung was like, I'm fine. He's going to finish. Gary's, like, pissed.
Yeah, they're very good about that. I think it's just, like, when your entire lifestyle is to be that competitive and your person is just, like, totally sucking, then I'm sure he wanted to, like, rip his hair out, but he was like, I'll just take a nap instead.
Yeah, honestly, to your point about them being level-headed, I don't know if I could sit on the sideline with my partner doing a roadblock, know exactly what they're missing, and not be able to tell them.
Right. And you can freak out or like show it as much as you want, but that wouldn't make your partner be like, oh yeah, I forgot to grease the pan. Like nobody thinks that way. It's just like, crap, Andy knows something that I don't, and I cannot for the life of me figure it out.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even know if he's allowed to do that because I think the rule is if you're not doing the roadblock, you can't communicate with your partner. I think you can like cheer for them.
Yeah.
But if you were to show like obvious distress when they make a mistake, I would consider that cluing them in. Like if I start pouring the paint and my partner is like freaking out already, that tells me that I already messed up.
That's a good point.
I think that might have given him a time penalty. So the fact that he didn't even do that shows a very like cerebral kind of calm mentality that I don't think I would have.
I definitely wouldn't either.
I would, I'd be so done.
There have been a few times, I mean, like a handful of times this season where like someone just totally sucks at the roadblock and their person is just like, okay, they're going to get it. So they must know like we'll get in trouble if we do it.
There have been times where teams have gotten time penalties for saying, look over there or like something really short like that.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
maybe like it's a strategy to take the time penalty.
Yeah,
But
like, even if Gary were to say, D'Angelo, watch the example, like if he were to do something like that, that would get him a time penalty.
yeah, that's also like abundantly clear too. Like you need to completely restart everything you're doing.
Mhm.
All right, so we're at the final four. So we talked about this a little bit earlier, but you think that at this point in the race, sometimes it'll happen where you have your three best and then your fourth, but the fourth will somehow sneak into the top three. How do you envision this ending, and then what's your ideal ending?
Ooh, that's tough. So I think that I kind of want to see Gary and D'Angelo in the final three. Number one,
Yeah.
because I don't want to see the other three teams have like a totally free ride.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would be kind of funny if Will and James are the team that doesn't make it.
Yeah.
And I only say that not because I dislike Will and James. My heart doesn't love Will and James, but my head absolutely loves them. Like their player in me absolutely loves what they're doing.
They're total players, which is awesome.
Yeah, except they overlooked one detail, and I am kind of astonished that they overlooked this. You have your big alliance, including the strongest teams. When you make your sub-alliance within that, you should not only be including the strongest teams in that piece too. You want to be at the end with people you can beat.
So that was something that I had thought of right when this first Mind Alliance was formed. It was the clear best four teams, and then to me, you could have swapped out Ishwar and Aparna for like Leo and Alana.
Mhm.
But I was like, okay, so I mean that makes sense. It's just like the teams that happen to be in the first 5 places. Great. But I thought that too. I was like, okay, well, these are my 3 favorite teams, but I don't want to go up against the Beards or Hung and Chi. The Beards have gotten first place like 4 times in a row.
Right. And like these teams very likely would have been the final 5 anyway.
Right.
But now you're saying, okay, this is not only the final 5, but we're going to prophesize the final 3, and it could be the most insane, amazing final leg ever. Because honestly, if it's those 3 teams, I don't know who wins, because I think any one of them could have a good day or a bad day, especially when they're back in America. But if I'm actually trying to plan this out and I'm actually trying to game the situation, which clearly Will and James have been trying to do from jump, I want Ishwar and Aparna in my 3.
Right.
They're the one team that I know if I'm at the final leg, it becomes a 2-team race instead of a 3-team race.
Mhm.
Gary and D'Angelo on a good day could do well. And Hung and Chi and the Beards absolutely could do well at the final leg. Like none of them have been buckling under pressure. So big mistake from Will and James, unless they know something we don't.
They must. And also in the past, have alliances, to put this bluntly, like done more than what this group of 5 has done? Because I understand that alliances are nothing like what they are in Survivor, but they didn't do a ton for each other.
Well, I mean, the mechanics of the race don't really let you.
Yeah.
Right? You're not orchestrating a vote, although they have had last season. I think they tried something with a vote. It was weird. But generally, all you can do to help other teams is give them little bits of advice on tasks and not U-turn them, not yield them, which this alliance has done more than any large alliance I've ever seen in The Amazing Race.
Oh, okay.
And I like it this season because it's innovative and new. What I worry about, just like some other reality shows that you don't talk about, luckily, is
I can't imagine what I watch every single reality TV show.
Of course. There could be a trend like we've seen in recent years with that which shall not be named.
Yes, with the Voldemort show.
Of these massive alliances coming together and taking control right away because it's optimal gameplay, but the teams or the people involved not being the most compelling. And having a kind of similar setup to what we have now, where even though there's a big alliance, people are so not clear of where they are in the hierarchy of that alliance.
Absolutely. D'Angelo and Gary have no idea that they're like, oh, the alliance is broken just because we have to.
Yeah, like it's not a big deal early on. Early on, it's great, but you need to have that agency. And if you don't, then the end game gets very stale. Now, what's nice is even though Gary and D'Angelo are so oblivious, they could still somehow pull this out and survive another leg, maybe, and then just not win because they're not winning.
Right.
But I like this season. I like it with these teams. I like it that it's the first time we've really seen an alliance like this kind of run the race.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see this every time.
Yeah, I get that. Who at this point do you think will win?
I think your read on the Beards
What's
is
our
pretty
boot
good.
order to put it in Survivor terms?
Our boot order.
I'm gonna write this down.
The logical boot order is Gary D'Angelo, Hung and Chi finished third, Beards went out. What I think might happen, because we like spice.
We sure do.
I think that Hung and Chi or Will and James could go home next week.
Mm-hmm.
And if that happens, that becomes a 2-team race. Usually what happens in the finale is it comes down to 2 teams, and then there's some third team like in the distance.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Gary and D'Angelo are so perfectly set up to be that team.
Yeah.
Obviously, if that's not what actually happened when they ran, then oh well. But I do think that the Beards are going to win. Unless the Beards go home next week. If they make the final leg, the Beards win.
Yeah, so is the final leg 2 or 3?
3.
3 teams.
So there's one more elimination, and then the final leg always takes place in the final destination city. So they'll be back on American soil. So it's much more, it's task heavy because navigation becomes a lot easier.
Right. Oh yeah, that's a really good point.
So your winning team is always going to be a team that excels at the challenges, not the teams that get around quickly.
Then in that, I mean, I guess at this point, all of them get around quickly. I would guess like Will and James have had stick issues, but that's not going to be an issue.
No.
So yeah, if that's the case, then I'd put the Beards and probably Will and James, because Hung and Chi are like the easy choice, but Will and James are very, very good. Like I can't think of a time where they've done really poorly in a roadblock or a detour. I know they have, but not like.
Well, I'm thinking back to the task with the trucks.
Yes. Yeah.
That was their big moment of like, we're not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Hung and Chi have been stumbling a lot more lately, and you're right with Riley and Madison. They've made no mistakes.
Yeah.
Which could mean a bunch of different things. It could mean that they're due for a fall. They could be the team that goes home next week.
Yeah. I can't imagine they are, because they had a quote unquote slow start. And by slow, I mean like they were middle of the pack. And now like, it's like them and Hung and Chi have kind of traded places, but I think Hung and Chi have totally bounced back just fine. I feel like it's the Beards' game to lose, or the race to lose, excuse me.
I agree. But I, with the exception probably of Gary and D'Angelo, I would be happy with any win. And I would feel like it was earned and deserved. I think if Gary and D'Angelo win, there's a little bit of an asterisk on it for me.
Yeah, it feels weird.
I feel like they benefited too much from the alliance. I feel like they're one of the teams, if the alliance didn't exist, where they would have fallen off at some point. They would have had a bad leg, and they would have been gone with a whimper.
Yeah, gone with a whimper. I like that. What else do you have? Those are kind of all the notes I had. This was a pretty straightforward episode, but want to give you a chance. Yeah, you can check your notes.
I'm going
now.
through my notes. I'm looking at the tab.
38 minutes in, he looks at his notes for the first time.
So we talked about Oh Hey Fuck You.
Love that. And that was, I wish we saw more of her doing that, because I totally didn't expect that happening.
I kind of did. And I mean, I could tell like early on that she was going to have some fire. I know we put a lot of stock in Michelle and Victoria for bringing a sass, but since they've been gone, I've really enjoyed Aparna. Yeah, I think we pretty much covered everything. I like the way that Hung pronounced the word accessory at the beginning.
I missed that?
She said her kids love the gnome and all his accessories.
Oh, that's adorable. The gnome and his accessories.
His accessories.
This gnome is getting a lot of love.
We love the Travelocity roaming gnome. They used to, back when people traveled, they used to do a lot of like the gnome ads during the Amazing Race. So like,
oh, I bet, yeah.
I mean, of course, it's a show about seeing the world. You're gonna want to advertise travel. And I remember when they like first transitioned the gnome into the race, and it was just like it made so much sense. And now it's just a thing. Like I don't even know if I've seen a Travelocity commercial in decades.
No, I mean definitely not in mental decades, but definitely not in the past year.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, it's a product placement that, and for what it's worth, I love Survivor product placements too. Like give me the Outback Steakhouse all the time, because I think it's hilarious. And I think the players like know how to play it. This is actually a very organic advertise. It's a very organic placement. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's weird. And also like a bunch of people hugging a gnome while doing this really competitive race is like really funny.
Yeah, I prefer the gnome to they always do like cars and stuff with their product placement. But they don't do a whole lot else, which is nice.
Yeah. I think the gnome makes sense. Yeah. If you're
Yeah.
driving around like a Chevy Suburban or something, that's just like seems a little weird.
Yeah.
But what do I know?
They used to do specific tasks where when backup cameras became a new thing.
Yeah.
They used to do a task where it's like, okay, you're going to get into this car in Germany or wherever you are, and you're going to go into reverse, and you're going to use the backup camera to read your next clue that we painted on the road.
The backup camera.
And it
That's
was
also so crazy
wow.
that like backup cameras were a new thing at one point in our lives. And we are not that old.
When the race first started, we used to not have to worry about people borrowing phones to look at GPS.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, when did they have to change that? When did they change that rule? Or create that rule?
They've never been allowed to race with a phone.
Okay.
They never had phones. So I don't think they needed to make up the rule because they can still, if someone has a phone, they can borrow it and look at a GPS. But unless it just becomes less significant to the story, I do feel like people get lost a lot less now.
Yeah, that's true.
In the early goings of it, teams were getting lost like crazy.
Yeah, we're only seeing people get lost like when Kayla and Haley. Like every hour, I felt for them. But that to me, that seems more like bad luck than doing something wrong.
Yeah, you used to have teams who would drive hours out of the way because they wouldn't know how to read a map.
Yeah, see, that's terrible. But I do like the idea of people like needing to read maps. I like that.
I like the reading maps. I miss the airport volleying for flights.
Yeah, that seems like that would have been fun because the getting in last place and like being on the second flight, that puts you back a half hour.
Yeah, I mean there have been times where teams have literally been days behind and not eliminated. Because if multiple teams fall behind or like crazy delays, I think every single flight this season has been all the teams on the same flight, which like I get it with the world being how it is, but I can't help but think back to season 1, which was pre 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
There were teams that were literally like getting into physical confrontations at the gate, trying to get better seats on planes.
Oh my God,
that's what we want.
I might have to go back and watch season 1. Go back to Borneo, see what's up.
Oh yeah,
Amazing Race season 1.
Or like teams sprinting through airports to try to get standby tickets. Like you have a connection, you have to get to the other gate before the tickets go, and it's like, and the race has been won or lost at those moments, which is awesome.
That's fun. I guess, so,
I do miss
instead watching people struggle with stick shift.
Yeah, I mean that's always been there too.
Always like that.
I'd rather see that than mixing mojitos or whatever they were doing.
Yeah, that was dumb. I don't know why that's like stuck in my head. It just drive me up a wall. It felt like a waste of time. But
yeah, I wish that like
it's so good.
I wish CBS could get like a special waiver from the TSA to just like allow racers to be total assholes in airports. Yeah. Like just like look away. Like we want them doing this. This is performance art.
Yeah, we
allow them to beat each other senselessly and fight over planes.
There are 2 first class seats. Who gets them? Like fight to the death over it.
Oh,
I would love to watch that.
It'd be great.
But we are probably on a lot of no-fly lists after having this conversation. Andy, anything else before I let us go?
I think that's all I got.
All right, so we are entering the final 4. Andy, one thing I'm going to promote is the Survivor Game Show Network, which is run by one of our patrons, McKenna Feeney. They are hosting their 3rd trivia game, not this upcoming Sunday, 2 Sundays from now, December 13th. Can you tell me why this is so near and dear to your heart?
It's near and dear for several reasons. The first thing we should mention, because now that this has been announced, I feel like we can say who the special guest is.
Yes, you should take it away.
Special guest, Wynn Gerald herself.
By Shell Fitzlegend.
By Shell Fitzlegend. Michelle Fitzgerald will be guest hosting along with McKenna, her friend Nick, and Phil and Alexa. Chance.
Phil was originally a maybe, and then when I told him Michelle was coming on, he suddenly became available.
Of course. So definitely compete in that. It's a super fun trivia game. The winner will be invited into a fancy Winners at War Jeopardy style Final 3 situation where they will get their ass formally handed to them by yours truly.
Professionally handed to them by Andy, yes. And I believe, I actually don't know, I wasn't able to participate in the second one. Kyle. Yeah. And Andy, have you done Jeopardy before?
Perhaps.
So yeah.
Trivia is my thing.
Andy is actually I'm going to use a strong word, banned from participating in this upcoming trivia game because he won the first one. So I'm going to put a link to the sign up Google form in this chat. There are only 15 spots available, and I think there are 40 people who have applied so far. So make sure to get your name in. I'm not quite sure how they choose it. I assume it's random. Half the money is going to go to Stand Up to Cancer. The other half is prize money, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So again, it's going to be this 2 Sundays from now, December 13th at 7:30 p.m. Co-hosted by Michelle Fitzgerald. And for some reason, I will also be there too, but I'm not worth mentioning because she's way cooler than anybody.
Are you competing this time?
What was that?
Are you going to compete?
I am competing.
All right.
Yeah. Well, I can't move my head to my hand to my head fast.
We gotta work on that mechanic.
I know we need
that hurt my head.
Mail out buttons to people or something.
Of course.
Yeah, because we all have money for that.
Totally.
Additionally, I think Phil will be done moving by next week, so Andy will unfortunately be replaced back by Phil for next Wednesday, recapping the final 4 of The Amazing Race, and right after that, Phil and I will be recapping the finale of Survivor China. So a lot of TV to watch this week. McKenna and I are continuing our Australian Survivor recaps Monday night. So episodes 8 and 9, we're going to watch this coming Monday at 5:30 p.m. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Rate Andy and I 5 stars on iTunes. And that's all we have for you guys. I hope you have a wonderful week. And Andy, thanks for coming back on.
Always, anytime.
Bye.